Let's explore this further. Joining us from London is defence analyst Alex Scheers. Great to have you with us, Alex. First up, the use of drones has proved to be a powerful weapon, particularly for Iran. Was Iran's capability on this front underestimated by the US and Israel, do you think?
Absolutely. I think we've seen from the United States and Israel a concerted effort to target Iran's ability to retaliate for the initial attacks. And whilst we've seen a lot of attacks targeting its ballistic missile capabilities, its arsenal, as well as its launch capabilities, one of the things that's proven to be more amorphous and difficult to degrade is Iran's drone capabilities. And that's because, like you said, they're very easy to develop, they're easy to manufacture, they're relatively cheap as well. And I think Iran has planned for this for quite some time. So it has thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of these drones. And a drone swarm is a very difficult thing to intercept. Yes, perhaps you could target those manufacturing capabilities and you can target some of the drones, but the risk of one getting through defenses is always ever present. And I think Iran has leveraged its drone capabilities highly effectively to cause all sorts of chaos through the use of swarms and other drone utilities.
I was going to ask, you mentioned the quantity of drones that they have, and that's key, isn't it? Just how many they've got left.
That's correct. I mean, we don't know exactly how many they've got left. I mean, we've seen the United States try to target its ability to develop these drones. But again, as I said, these are cheap to make. Iran has been planning for this conflict for a long time, and I suspect they've still got thousands of these drones. So whilst you may target some of the harder assets that the Iranians have, it's very hard to defend against a drone swarm, and Iran is using that highly effectively.
And the drones are weapons being used primarily in their strategy of horizontal escalation, hitting neighbouring targets, that is, initially to put pressure on the United States. But what now is their strategy behind the specific targeting we're seeing across the Gulf states from Iran, do you think?
I think what they really want to do here with their drone capabilities is to target some of those critical national infrastructure in the Gulf states in order to force the Gulf states to turn to Washington, to put pressure to bear on the Trump administration, to essentially slow down the trajectory of this conflict. Now, what we've seen from Washington is this talk of the deployment of ground forces to places like Karg Island, for example. I think that constitutes a trap, an escalation trap, because these drones work best within close range. And if the United States were to decide to put an expeditionary unit on Karg Island, or indeed deploy its 82nd Airborne Division there, I think the drones will be able to do some serious damage to U.S. personnel in particular, and that would expose the U.S. to larger political costs, most notably the death of U.S. personnel. So I think the Gulf states are aware that the Iranians can continue to target critical national infrastructure, in particular things like desalination plants, which, of course, Iran will look to do if the United States escalates this conflict further.
Alex, we must now add to the mix this removal of the US Army Chief of Staff General George, gone in the fifth week of what is a major conflict. What do you make of that, and what might its implication be for the execution of this war?
I think it really speaks to Donald Trump's inability to factor in dissenting voices. I think he's trying to almost purge his military establishment so that nobody comes in to offer a voice of reason or to maybe push back on some of the president's decisions. And I think it'll have implications in the sense that the United States still hasn't identified clear strategic objectives in its operations in Iran. Yes, they have managed to achieve some successes in terms of the operational and tactical side of things, but the political outcomes have still not been established. And I think the longer this war goes on, the greater the risk of the United States being dragged into a quagmire. And again, there are no dissenting voices within Trump's orbit to tell him what the pros and cons of this situation are. And that's why we're seeing so much chaos unraveling from the U.S. at the moment.
Alex, briefly, if you would, Kuwait, as we've been seeing this morning, has borne considerable brunt of Iran's attacks. Is that just about the US presence there, or is there a greater strategic reason?
Iran has hegemonic ambitions in the region. I think Iran has actually gained quite a lot during the course of this war. Yes, it's been degraded in terms of its military capabilities and it's had to suffer quite a lot of pain, but it seems to be willing to absorb a lot of that pain. And whatever Iran does in the Gulf at the moment is actually oriented towards increasing its advantage, increasing its bargaining power, and increasing its coercive leverage as well. And so targeting installations, U.S. installations in the Gulf has proved to be very effective. But I think more so than that, targeting countries like Kuwait, Qatar, and other countries in the GCC has only strengthened Iran's hand, and by dint of that, weakened both the GCC positions because they stand to lose a great deal from this protracted conflict, and of course, weakening the United States' ability to off-ramp from this war.
That is Alex Scheers, defense analyst, speaking to us from London. Thanks, Alex.